Aquaba, welcome back. If you are just now joining us, we are exploring the topic of education and miseducation as it relates to our struggle history and what we must do now. To properly contextualize the education struggle, I must begin with a profound quote from Dr. Asa G. Hilliard III. In his book, Seba, Reawakening the African Mind, Baba Asa writes, and I quote, "There is something dreadfully wrong with an education socialization process that leaves us ignorant of our past, strangers to our people, apes of our oppressors, and creatures of habitual, shallow thought and trivial values." How does this happen? As a seasoned educator, my experience reveals a general approach to teaching Black history that has three particularly devastating flaws. First, too often the history is truncated. That is, the history begins with enslavement, not African people creating the foundations of civilization as the first people to walk the earth. Consequently, our monumental achievements from agriculture to animal domestication to mathematics and science are erased. Our classical civilizations, from Kemet or ancient Egypt to the empires of Kush, Ethiopia, Ghana, Mali, Songhai, and others, are marginalized at best, or more often don't exist. Our creations of institutions of government, education, culture, and religion, among others, is simply discounted as fiction. Secondly, the enslavement saga is not told as an egregious aggression story of a people who brutally invaded and stole an entire continent of people, land, and resources. No. The history of European aggression is presented as a virtue, a people industrious, impressive, and victorious in claiming of a so-called manifest destiny of which everything of value was divinely assigned to them to use and shape the world as they desired. To justify this arrogant worldview, the people who were victimized had to be portrayed as ignorant savages needing civilizing, who were saved by European intrusion. This includes both African and Native peoples worldwide. Thirdly, the history had to be written in such a way to render the truth silent, or at best, minimize the damnation of what actually happened and glorify the oppressor as having ascended to his rightful place in the world order. To be abundantly clear, there is no place on earth where Europeans went that death and destruction did not follow. But I digress. Tragically, our miseducation is facilitated by deeply rooted colonial curricula, steeped in Eurocentric history, culture, values, and glorification. The little Black history that is taught is not in a manner that is relevant, motivating, and empowering to our young people. The truth problem Dr. Hilliard spoke of in teaching our history is a major issue for African descendant people all over the world. For example, in my travels to Africa, I have been sincerely shocked to see how even in the motherland, where colonialism reigned, the true history of our history is still not taught truthfully. In Ghana, making the situation worse is the ubiquitous images of a white Jesus, reinforcing white supremacy as a normative condition. One can clearly see that even when it comes to our mass miseducation, we are connected. An important aspect that receives too little attention is the deep psychological damage and component to miseducation. easily missed on the surface of things. Miseducation fits hand in hand with racism and white supremacy. It gives us the necessary label of black inferiority. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote of this in his seminal book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? And I quote, "Being Negro in America means trying to hold on to psychological life, physical life, amid psychological death. It is watching the pain in your children who grow up with clouds of inferiority in their mental skies. The tragedy of slavery and segregation is that they instilled in the Negro a disastrous sense of his own worthlessness," end quote. Dr. James W. Loewen, a white historian and author, also wrote about this in his best-selling book, Lies My Teacher Told Me, Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong. Let me quote him. "Attacking education was an important element of the white supremacist program. History textbooks are written to comfort the descendants of the oppressor," end quote. Loewen's book, written in great detail, not only provides historical context, but like King, also an antidote for solution. He writes, and I quote, "To function adequately in civic life in our troubled times, students must learn the causes of racism." He continues, "Slavery's twin legacies to the present are the social and economic inferiority it conferred upon blacks and the cultural racism it instilled in whites. Both continue to haunt our society. Therefore, treating slavery's enduring legacy is necessarily controversial. Unlike slavery, racism is not over yet." As if to confirm this statement, in the United States today, right-wing politicians and activists are banning books as if we're living in the 17th century. In Florida, a single parent can object to a book and it is banned. Most recently, Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb, composed for the inauguration of President Joe Biden, was recently banned at elementary schools in Miami-Dade County under this policy, even as the parent who initiated the banning thought Oprah Winfrey composed the poem and hadn't actually read it. Oprah merely wrote the introduction to the published poem. In the parent's complaint, she alluded to critical race theory and hate speech, and also objected to several other children's books about Black history, including Love to Langston for poet Langston Hughes. Gorman's publisher, the Random House, has joined PEN America, a nonprofit literary organization, in a lawsuit to challenge the book's restrictions. Critical race theory is often maligned, a teaching tool that people don't know what it actually is. So that you know, critical race theory is a university-level paradigm utilized to examine, analyze, and discuss issues of race and white supremacy in law schools, especially as it impacts public policy and legislation. Often referred to as CRT, it was originally devised by Professor Derek Bell, the first tenured professor of law at Harvard University and a teacher mentor of President Barack Obama. It is important to note that critical race theory is not taught in schools for children in the United States, Bermuda, or anywhere. We'll be right back.